There are no business roadmaps, no marketing strategies, no magic pricing guide, and no piece of gear or technical knowledge that can overcome your deeply held belief system that's holding you back.
Hi, welcome back.
I think it's so interesting. When I went outside today on our morning dog walk, we walked by part of where the Olympics was held, and now everything's gone. The stands are gone, all of the beautiful things for the Olympics are gone.
Yeah, if you want to call it beautiful, I'm just so happy they're gone. They just blocked off so many things that were just, again, you just took for granted, and just so again, nice for the local citizenry to be able to use that they couldn't use for this whole Olympic period. So
exactly. Even though it looked beautiful in all the photos, and it was a raving success.
Again, that's the beautiful thing about photography and video. It only shows you the stuff that's beautiful. It cuts out all the horrible stuff on the outside.
All about the angle.
Pardon me being a little bit down, but now I'm actually really up because I can't wait to use the city in the way that it was meant.
It's back in its full force because La Rentrée happened, which is when the French kids come back to school, or school starts. After taking the month of August off, everybody's back to work. The cafes are full. It's kind of quiet during the Olympics, so it's nice to have all the life back in this wonderful city. So anyway, we digress, but
yeah, again, it's gorgeous out.
Week.
Yeah, it's been a great week. I had a really good one-on-one street photography workshop that went very, very well. Again, because the weather was perfect. Then, of course, luckily the rain held out. This is Paris, after all. But none of that means anything to what we're going to talk about.
Welcome back. Whenever you're listening to this, it is early September, and today's topic is self-sabotage. That's a big one, I think, anyway, as far as running a photography business goes.
Mm-hmm. Or any other business.
True. And since we're only talking about photography here, that doesn't mean that other people can't learn from what we're talking about. So let's get started. So in Brianna Wiest's book, I'm not sure if I said her name right, so I apologize if I said it wrong. The Mountain is You, fantastic book. If you haven't already read it, all of this will be in the show notes. But she describes self-sabotage as it is not a way we hurt ourselves, but it is a way that we try to protect ourselves. Self-sabotage is when you have two conflicting desires. One is conscious and one is unconscious. You know how you want to move your life forward or your business, and yet you are stuck for some reason. When coaching photographers on getting their business unstuck, I feel that this concept of self-sabotage is at the core of the struggle. People want to learn from Keith and I because we have a proven blueprint for creating and operating a prosperous photography business for the long term. But, and this is a very big but, we could hand them the keys to the castle, and guess what? Many people, many photographers have a conflict between these conscious and unconscious thoughts.
It's true. You get so many times you can, and we've had this discussion between ourselves and with other people in the past. People ask, well, why would you sell your secrets? It's not a matter of selling secrets and then holding stuff back. You can give everything away for free, and a very, very small percentage of the people would actually execute. So you can give the person the path to the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and most people will just not follow the path.
Exactly, and I feel honestly, just a few things that we've even already spoken about in these just handful of podcast episodes we put out are very simple. They sound simple in theory, but it's exactly these things that are holding people back from executing this blueprint that a lot of people pay a lot of money for. And I think that it's that missing link, which again is why we're here, because I think, as I think we said in a previous episode, it took us this amount of time to really recognize that is the issue, for lack of a better word, that we can hand people, lead the horse to water, and you can't make them drink. So we can give you everything. We can tell you how much we charge, what our contract, we could literally share everything with you, but that does not give you the belief in yourself to institute it and carry it out successfully. So that's why talking about self-sabotage is really at the center of a lot of this. Many people, many photographers have a conflict between these conscious and unconscious thoughts. The result, they'll remain stuck. They want their business to move forward, but there's something holding them back. The secret is that there are no business roadmaps, no marketing strategies, no magic pricing guide, and no piece of gear or technical knowledge that can overcome your deeply held belief system that's holding you back. That's
That's so,
keeping you stuck.
that's so true. No piece of gear, no, it's not the camera that's holding you back. It's not the software that's holding you back. It's only you holding you back.
Yeah, it's not the oversaturated market. It's
Yeah.
not millions of photographers in your area. That is not what's holding. That is definitely not what's holding you back.
Right.
Our belief systems are so ingrained in us that you believe it as a truth because you have never questioned it. You grew up with these beliefs around money and what was possible. You may have never considered that this is the key to you figuring out what is in fact the very thing that is keeping you stuck. These belief systems can keep you limited and you don't believe what you're capable of. You can't imagine other possibilities. And because of that, you're creating this business that you say you consciously want. It will never happen the way you would like it to unless you address these long-held beliefs around money and the limits you have unconsciously set on yourself. Well, I'll give you a personal example, and then maybe you have one as well.
Yeah,
If not, I'm going to put you on the spot.
I'm sure I've got an example for something.
You usually do. Without even knowing it from how I was raised in the communities that I grew up in, I had an unconscious ceiling for what I could earn and what my possibilities were. Couple that with a childhood that had divorce, cross-country moves, and several school changes, watching a single mom work really hard, I definitely developed a scarcity mindset around money. Money was hard in our house. Money was for other people. Money was something that you spent the minute you got it for things you needed. No talk about savings or investing. This thought pattern in my subconscious was not believing that I was capable of making and keeping money. Keeping money for me has always been a struggle. Well, you know that. To push my business forward, I'm jumping through a few decades here. I had to increase my threshold, raise the ceiling of what I thought was possible for myself. I had to start believing in me and that there were bigger possibilities available than I had ever imagined.
Again, so I think that's probably one of the things that brought us together and kept us together is the fact we have a very similar story. Again, growing up was my mom, single mom, working 2 jobs at various points, was just making ends meet. So we weren't talking about me being an entrepreneur when I grew up. I was fairly certain that I was just going to work for somebody. Didn't know who, didn't know doing what, but it was not likely going to be what's my own company because it's not what I had observed.
Exactly. I never saw that example growing up. I grew up around wonderful, loving family members, but no one ever spoke of being a photographer or being an entrepreneur or being a small business owner. I literally had no experience with that. So it never even entered my realm of possibilities until after college. Yeah. But you're right. We had a very similar upbringing. And
again, both of us with having a certain scarcity mindset that we have to get past. And we have gotten past, and not that it's not like bump up against us here and there, but you just have to get through it.
I wouldn't have known what a scarcity mindset was. I'm not even sure if they use that terminology.
Right, I'd never heard of it, but obviously I lived it. But.
Yeah, exactly. Now that when you look back, I can recognize the patterns. I wanted to bring up today a couple of ways we self-sabotage as photographers. The first thing that comes to mind is resistance. We have to identify unconscious beliefs that are preventing us from showing up and moving from where we are now to where we want to be. Here's a story from a photographer friend of ours. It's hard not to wear that coaching hat when you're hearing your friends tell a story. This friend uses resistance to self-sabotage herself and her business constantly, so it's something that I'm used to hearing. And why is it so much easier to recognize these patterns in others and yourself, right?
Well, again,
$1 million question.
We will. It's in the idea that it's easy to give advice. It's much harder to take it.
She came up with a very unique portrait session that would be a hit with her clients because anytime she's done it in the past, people love it. And even though it is her own idea and a potential moneymaker for her business, she has decided to put it off, to not offer these sessions during this upcoming portrait season. She's sticking with an outdated mini session model that she uses. It makes her a little bit of money, but she'll continue working with the wrong clients that are looking for quantity over quality and at a lower price point. When I ask her why she isn't offering the other more, I'll call it it's a new take on a portrait session, especially for her, she gives me a litany of reasons, and some involve her playing the victim, finding excuses, blaming others, and then she starts with I'm so busy doing all these other things. It's easier to do the mini sessions. And then, I'm a single mother. The whole story comes out. I have it so hard. My whole life, things have always been wrong for me. I've tried everything. And I'd rather go with the sure thing. Then in the same sentence, she says something about how she'll never book clients, even though I point out to her that every time she does these newer portraits, she gets a great response followed by inquiries. Like, to me, it's a no-brainer. Hearing this dialogue she has, I realize she is willing to accept more of the same because she's resistant to change. She's afraid. She'd rather make less than put herself out there and take this chance. This is a great example of self-sabotage because I know she wants to make more money, because she constantly tells me she needs to make more. But she is resistant because if she puts herself out there, she might be judged, fail, or she might succeed.
So when I was in photo school, like a bazillion years ago, I remember coming up with a great idea that how about we, when we graduate, we jump out of a plane to celebrate. Like, how cool is this? And so I had a ton of people, a ton of my classmates, like, wow, that's a great idea. Well, over the course of time, a bunch of people fell out of the program. And in the end, a little over 60 of us graduated. So as graduation day was approaching, I'm like, hey, let's get this thing organized. I'm really looking forward to this. One, I'm looking forward to graduating, but two, I'm really also excited about jumping out of this whole plane thing. Needless to say, almost everybody that was still left that thought it was a great idea. Absolutely, what are you, crazy? Like, that's just silly. I'm not going to do that. So from the big group, it came down to 3 of us, and yeah, it was scary. There was a fear of what's going to happen after graduation, just from having to actually get out into the real world, and there's a fear of going up in a perfectly good airplane and jumping out of it. But you do, like, just because you're climbing up. This perfectly fine aircraft is getting you a nice, beautiful view of everything, and suddenly it's like, okay, time to jump. I know something. Everybody just. Fast forward, everybody jumped. But
well, how many people?
There were 3, me, including me. Yeah, so we jumped. You can imagine that some people would just get so nervous that you get up there, you look down, and, oh my God, this is kind of crazy. And then they imagine all the bad things that could happen versus how much fun this could be, and what would happen if everything goes right. Some people just focus on what would happen if everything went wrong, and then they all just ride the plane back down. I would be lying to you if I said, oh my God, I came running to the door and just jumped out, like, woohoo. No, I did what I do. When I get nervous, I start talking more and faster. And the instructors were looking at me going, dude, you can calm down. It's getting to be cool. I'm like, oh, I'm not nervous. I'm not nervous. I was probably terrified, but I was talking myself through it. I walked to the door and I jumped, and it was amazing. So much fun. Had I not, I would have never known what that experience is like.
That's true.
But
so do you see this as a metaphor? Because a couple things you said, when I think of when you said you look out and you see this beautiful vista, however, it's kind of like the education that you're getting in photo school is that beautiful vista. They're showing you everything that's possible.
Yeah, they're showing you the world that's your oyster, and this can all be yours. It just requires some work. Right. But it becomes, again, scarier to go, okay, well, I have my daily schedule. I know I've got this class. I've already passed that test. I'm doing this. I ended up graduating, oddly. I never think of myself as the greatest student, but I did actually graduate with the best portfolio, which was a surprise to me. But again, it was a good surprise. But
do you think that, like, getting to the edge of the plane and jumping out it's really the equivalent of graduating?
It's the equivalent of graduating. It's going, because there's a bunch of people that I went to school with, and then stories I heard about prior graduates that they go through this whole program and they are now, again, ready in theory to go technically ready to take on the world. But the fear of, the fear of starting was not just the fear
resisting, and they're literally resisting.
And now they're going to go back into what they're used to. Like they'd rather just tread water and know it's coming because it's the exact same thing has been happening, versus go out there and get into a world that looks so exciting. But once you're actually facing it, then you're like, oh my God, I don't know what's going to happen. So let me just go back into my safe, little comfortable, whether not even comfortable, it could be completely uncomfortable, but you know it. Right, yeah.
It's what you know. Mm-hmm. It's fear of the unknown.
Exactly.
You're afraid, basically.
And and again, fear is normal.
Oh, absolutely.
Fear is totally normal. It's just a matter of what you do when faced with that fear. Exactly. Imagine if, historically speaking, people were afraid of everybody wouldn't face their fears. we wouldn't have like we'd be still we'd be drawing. Yeah, we'd be drawing what's called stick figures on cave walls and only seeing it in the dark or in the daytime after what's called the light came back up again.
The cell phone. I mean,
Yeah.
everything, the smartphone, the computer, everything. Obviously, it was people who didn't give up and kept going in spite of the resistance that they probably felt on a daily basis. So I'm curious that you may not even know the answer to this, but of the people that graduated in the class, how many are still photographers?
I don't know an actual number, but I do know
Maybe the 3 that were on that.
I know for a fact, actually, yeah, the 3 that were on that plane, we're all still doing it. And I know,
That's curious.
I know what's called, I periodically see another one who pop up in social media, and I know that she's still doing it. But I don't know about the rest.
It's interesting. I think that there's definitely a correlation between the people who are willing to, the metaphor of jumping out of an airplane is the same thing. It's really running your own photography business is like jumping out of an airplane practically every single day. That's a great story to share because I think all of us can put ourselves in that position and recognize like where resistance shows up for us, especially in our business. But great, that's a really good example.
No.
I don't think you needed me to tell you that, but I think that was a very
and 100% true. Not again. Most of my things are metaphors. That was actually true.
Which brings us to a couple of other examples of how we self-sabotage. Another one, hitting your upper limit. I already discussed this about myself earlier. When you start to surpass your upper limit, that's when the self-sabotage kicks in. Your brain wants to be comfortable and familiar and keep you safe. It keeps you in your comfort zone. So again, when I was younger, like I never realized that you could earn 6 figures as a business owner, photographer, you name it. Like I had a cap on what I thought was possible. Women only earn, max $100,000 a year, never even dreaming it's possible to earn so much more than that. That was my ceiling. That was something that I kept myself under and couldn't even imagine going past it. Again, your plane example is a perfect metaphor for this trait as well. And then I think you really have to take this slow. If you allow yourself to gradually start hitting your new limits, you'll be more comfortable and you'll allow for it because it's not like a magic wand that you can just wave like, oh, I'm going to make $1 million a year. You have to make certain decisions along the way that open your mind up to these possibilities. If you're someone who thinks photographers can only make $25,000 a year, well, then you have to keep raising that limit of what you think is possible in order to get out of your comfort zone and get to those levels. It has to happen in not small steps, but it has to be methodical.
You also they don't once you have hit some, whether it's an arbitrary number or not, push past it. Like what you're saying that is your cap.
If you allow yourself to gradually start hitting new limits, you will be more comfortable and you will allow for it. My friend might have this going on as well. She's used to scraping to get by. She's used to lack in her life. She's constantly in and out of debt. She has an erratic relationship with money. She might not know what to do if everything went smoothly, if she was paid more for her photography and had an easier life. This right now doesn't work for her belief system. In order for her to believe that offering this new portrait session rather than the outdated mini sessions could be a profitable, viable option for her to have an easier life, this takes some time. She would have to expand her upper limit and realize she's worthy and capable of more. That's definitely easier said than done.
Much easier.
A few other self-sabotaging tactics fit into this scenario as well. Perfectionism.
Perfectionism. Yeah, that's one of those things. Like, just imagine people like, I'll start this whole thing, but I just need my website to be perfect. I go, I'm so close. I just have to find the right font. Who cares about the right? Again, not that the right font isn't important, but instead, just start with a good font and then and make it better as you go. Because if you're waiting, like if you start while you're looking for that perfect font, somebody who doesn't really care about your font knows you're actually offering something, and they can buy it from you. They can get your services. Now, if you're just sitting there, again in the dark, just waiting to turn the lights on until you find the exact last possible thing, you just theoretically left an awful lot of people looking for other people giving the same service.
We hear like, I need that perfect portrait lens, or I need X, Y, or Z in order for my business to be ready. Right. Really, if you have a camera and the willingness to do it, your business is already ready. Of course, you need all the other things. I'm a big believer in having a really solid foundation for your photography business. I think that sets you up for success. However, not getting started is the leading way that you will never find success.
Yeah, the only thing you can guarantee is that you're not going to get any clients if you don't actually start.
And I think that don't worry about doing well, just do it, show up, focus on getting something done in spite of it not being perfect.
Right, just make it better as you go.
And photography being very personal, I think it's a moving target always. If you don't get started, you'll never arrive. It's as simple as that. Another one is justification. My friend in the example I gave, she is making excuses for not giving these new portraits a try. She needs to stop accepting her own excuses. She could approach it in a more methodical way and quantify her progress. Maybe one day she could run her mini sessions on, say, a Saturday, and then on a Sunday run her portrait sessions. She could do a test, and maybe she could then see, it's black and white if you look at the numbers, and that she could see that which one was a more viable option, rather than deciding ahead of time that it's not going to work for the variety of reasons that she instinctively made up so she could stay in her comfort zone. Not sure if that made sense. Other examples are why you can't charge more because your market is saturated. I mean, I'm sure we could come up with...
Who's to say that people aren't going to pay a certain price? It's once you've gotten an arbitrary, you hit your arbitrary target, push past. You don't know that people won't pay more, but it seems that people have this arbitrary thought about what people are willing to pay. You don't know what people are willing to pay.
Let's say that I live in Phoenix and the market can bear what? It can bear a lot. It can bear, a $10,000 portrait session, and it bears a lot of $50 shoot and burn mini sessions too. So
what you don't know what's important to your potential client. Now, you think you do, and you're offering something that your hope is valuable, but don't limit the value you put on it to a point where if you look at some of the purchases that people go out and make, that just make you scratch your head. I've seen people that will still live at home with their parents, but go out and buy a BMW. They'll go into debt to get some crazy car payment to get a cool car, but they're going to still live at home with their mother. So they're putting out this cool image up front, but the reality is they can't bring anybody home in it.
Value. We also have had clients who are wearing $1,500 shoes, but yet they don't want to pay $50 for a 4x6 print. So that means they don't value the photography enough. They value other things more. So you don't get to decide for somebody where their value lies.
Right. But that said, then somebody else is going to say, oh my God, I'll put certain things aside because I want this portrait of my family, or this portrait of me, or this portrait of whoever. Somebody's out there that's going to value this over some other purchases that they might have made, which they can get later, but they're going to prioritize this.
Yeah. Fear of success is another example of self-sabotage. I don't know, this is a big one, and I think maybe a lot of people don't recognize that it even happens to themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something...
It doesn't seem like something you want to do to yourself. Exactly. So you're placing externalities on your situation, thinking, well, I would do this, but of course I'm excited to do this, but.
Like taking my friend example, and the fear of success, I think, is a decision, and the example I'm using about my friend, that she's probably feeling like she doesn't deserve to have more success, more money, a successful product offering, working with the right clients. She's holding herself back. People sabotage their higher earning potential because they aren't comfortable with having more money or success or proving themselves wrong. So they put themselves back into a lack mentality and stay within not hitting their upper limit. Like all of these seem to work together. But fear of failure, I definitely think is one of the most obvious when you look back at it, that I think people prevent themselves from success.
Well, again, they're like the name is different, but they're pretty much tied, and they're roughly the same. They just come at it from slightly different angles.
A fear of failing.
Yeah. Again, nobody likes to fail. Again, right. But some people. But failure sometimes is something that people are used to. And by failing, it keeps them in the neighborhood that they're comfortable in, versus going out and exploring the wilderness, which might have the promised land, or it might not. It might have some big, mean bears.
Right. And then we don't even try something because we're so afraid of what the outcome could be. Or we're afraid of being judged by our friends or other photographers, that we keep ourselves small, or we keep ourselves in this lack position in order to not fail. Right. When really failing on purpose is something else. But failing because you're trying is a whole different thing.
Yeah, to bring up another analogy, I think that it's the same thing as if you want to learn how to get someplace, getting lost in your car is or on foot, however, is a good thing if you learn from it. Because if you get from point A to point B without any mess up, then you're only going to know one way to get there. So every time you're going to get from point A to point B, if there's any detour or something, you're going to get lost because you've never been off that road. Now, if you have spent the time learning from these various mistakes, then you're eventually going to have such a big picture of the area that nothing is going to be able to keep you from your destination. You just move different ways to get to the exact same spot, and nothing can stop you.
Yeah, that's very true. It's a great analogy and a metaphor. I never know analogy metaphor.
I messed this up.
Wrong. But we don't even try anything. We don't try something because we're afraid to fail or look bad at doing something. I wish people understood how you can actually learn quite a bit from trying something, just like you explained. And if it doesn't work out, you learn something. I mean, my friend, she isn't failing because she's trying something new. She's failing because she isn't showing up as the best version of herself in her business. She doesn't want to try something. That's a whole different there's a different way of defining failure. Failure for not trying versus failure for trying, and then trying over and over and over again until you get it right. I mean, you learn more from your mistakes than you do your successes.
Totally.
So the last one I think I'll mention is a lot more, but the last one I'm going to mention in the context of what we're talking about here is being busy. So what does so busy even mean? Like, what do you, when you hear people say, I'm so busy, what does that mean? Does that mean I'm disorganized?
It could be. Well, I think it could be. Some people are legitimately that busy, but I think the majority of people, I'm going to assume, just haven't prioritized what's actually important in the day. And I've, again, guilty of everything.
No,
so, yeah, that's just, I'm not
saying,
yeah. But when you look at so many people that can do like a million things in a day and still raise the family, do this, change the world, and they seem to not even sweat. I mean, it makes you feel like a slacker, but again, not everybody's that person, but everybody does have the ability to prioritize what is important in a given situation. And if you actually spend your time prioritizing and doing the big things, not just focusing on the minutiae, the little tiny things, because those little tiny things aren't getting you forward. They become important farther down the line. But again, no one cares if you haven't done this, if you haven't done the big stuff.
Well, and I think also, especially when you're a solo, well, we work together, but there's a lot of solopreneurs that are photographers, and they have all the tasks of their business. But what happens on an average day is they end up doing all the, we'll call them minimum wage tasks, and they don't focus on really like the creative tasks or the things that actually make you money, or is the photography and then your relationship with clients and getting out there and networking and building your client base. Those are the CEO type interactions that a small business owner should be having on a daily basis. Instead, they're like, let me scroll through social media for endless hours and stuff like that. And that's not something that's moving the needle forward, but they're so busy because they've filled their time with really useless tasks that aren't moving their business forward.
Yeah, again, it's putting tactics above strategy. Now, if you don't have a strategy, your tactics aren't going to do anything.
Sure.
So you really have to prioritize. First, you need a strategy. Then you come up with the tactics, how to execute, so your strategy will work.
Yeah.
But if you do it, it doesn't work backwards.
No, it doesn't. And it really becomes part of the whole vicious cycle. And when you decide to prioritize, so again, like doing the $10 an hour tasks versus the CEO type tasks that actually really move your business forward, those busy tasks that make a difference, that bring in more money, that move your business forward. It's the things that you do that keep you hidden, that keep you small, that you waste your time doing all these things over here that really aren't helping your business. And I think that being busy is just a cover for really avoidance. It's a buffering tactic of not wanting to dive in and do the hard stuff. The only way to move your business forward to get where you want it to be is to do the hard work and to stop saying you're busy and to actually get out there and execute, like you said, from top priority down. And again, I think we spoke about that last week, or 2 weeks ago, where you write down the outcomes that you want for your business, and then you write down the steps that you need to take to get there. And that's a great example of, instead of being busy all the time, be intentional and prioritize.
Again, you want to be busy, But again, be busy with
Yeah.
important things, not just minutia.
Exactly. Well, again, now I guess we are at the end of just really we're scratching the surface on these self-sabotage tactics. These seem to apply for what we were talking about today. And hopefully you recognize a little bit of, scratch that. I just said, oh God, my voice.
It's weird. It only
I
comes up
know,
when
and
you're.
only when I'm recording. Well, that wraps up today's chat on self-sabotage. I'm sure we could talk on
Yeah.
and on about the subject, and I know it'll come back. We will talk about it again in different ways. There's a ton more to discuss on this topic, especially how it relates to your photography business.
Right. So yeah. Again, it's one of those things no one really wants to have, but we all have an example of it. As a matter of fact, why don't you, if you dare, was going to put in the comments something that you recognize as self-sabotage, and whether you've either overcome it or maybe you're still stuck there.
Yeah. I know, and again, it's something we all work through constantly. It's not like it just goes away magically. Like it's something you probably work on forever because there's always new things, coming into your business life and then your.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Please like, subscribe, and maybe pass it on to some friends that you think might benefit. So.
Yeah, that would be great. We'd love that. Thank you.